us an update on where your thinking is right now with Iran, if you have made a final decision on what you want to do?
I mean, I certainly can't tell you that, but we do have very big, powerful ships heading in that direction, as you know. I can't tell you,
Okay.
But I hope they negotiate something that's acceptable.
They say we sent a warship toward Iran. It is very good, indeed a dangerous piece of equipment, but even more dangerous than a warship is a weapon that can send that warship to the bottom of the sea. Trump has set a fresh deadline that could lead straight to war, but will Iran's supreme leader remain defiant in the face of such immense pressure? As Khamenei refuses to bow to Trump's threats, has he just put every single US asset in the region on notice for immediate retaliation? Iran is now threatening all-out war against America if Trump orders strikes, but is Washington ready for a conflict that could engulf the entire Middle East? And are the US's Middle East allies now caught in the deadly crossfire of Trump's war threat, fearing they could become the primary battleground? Just days after Supreme Leader Ayatollah Khamenei fired a direct warning at Donald Trump's Armada gathering near Iran, a new and even more specific threat has emerged from Tehran. On February 19th, Iran officially warned that all US bases, facilities, and assets across the Gulf region are now considered at risk and will be targeted if Washington attacks. This sharp warning was delivered by Amir Saeid Iravani, Iran's ambassador to the United Nations, in a blistering formal letter that leaves little room for ambiguity. The letter was addressed directly to UN Secretary-General Antonio Guterres and the President of the Security Council, ensuring the threat was registered at the highest international level. Iran warned that if Trump's military threats materialize into action, Tehran will not hesitate to declare all US assets in the region as legitimate targets for retaliation. Ambassador Iravani alleged that Iran is prepared to respond decisively against any and all American assets based in the Middle East, signaling a massive potential escalation. Tehran further warned Trump that any US decision to attack would trigger catastrophic consequences for the entire region, far beyond what Washington might anticipate. Iran also condemned Trump's suggestion on February 18th that the US might use UK military bases for strikes, calling it a dangerous expansion of the threat landscape. Iran's UN envoy then urged the Security Council to step in immediately and stop America from its unlawful threats of force, before the situation spirals out of control. Iran's ambassador to the UN said, and I quote, "Such a belligerent statement by the President of the United States signals a real risk of military aggression, the consequences of which would be catastrophic for the region and would constitute a grave threat to international peace and security. The Security Council must ensure that the United States immediately ceases its unlawful threats of the use of force. All bases, facilities, and assets of the hostile force in the region would constitute legitimate targets in the context of Iran's defensive response." End quote. This fresh threat from Iran comes just one day after President Trump explicitly threatened military strikes if the current nuclear talks collapse without a deal. On February 19th, Trump bluntly said that Iran should make a satisfactory and meaningful deal with the US if it wants to prevent an attack on its soil. However, when pressed, Trump refused to answer whether a final decision has already been made on taking military action against Iran, keeping the world guessing. President Trump also effectively gave Iran a strict deadline of 10 to 15 days to ink a nuclear deal, warning that failure would mean facing the full might of US forces. The US president's new deadline comes hot on the heels of a direct threat from Iran's supreme leader, who has made it clear he won't be intimidated. On February 17th, a defiant Ayatollah Khamenei claimed that Iran possessed weapons capable of sinking US warships, dismissing the American Armada as a vulnerable target. Khamenei also labeled Trump foolish for thinking he could push Iran into a deal through pressure, even as indirect negotiations were still ongoing in Geneva.
Could you give us an update on where your thinking is right now with Iran, if you have made a final decision on what you want to do?
I mean, I certainly can't tell you that, but we do have very big, powerful ships heading in that direction, as you know. I can't tell you,
Okay.
But I hope they negotiate something that's acceptable.
The US president keeps saying that our army is the strongest in the world, but even the strongest army in the world can sometimes get a slap in the face so hard that it cannot get back up. They say we sent a warship toward Iran. It is very good, indeed a dangerous piece of equipment, but even more dangerous than a warship is a weapon that can send that warship to the bottom of the sea. The US president, in one of his recent remarks, said that for 47 years, the United States has not been able to eliminate the Islamic Republic. He complained to his own people, for 47 years, the US has not been able to get rid of the Islamic Republic. This, he says, is a good admission. I say, you will not be able to do it either. If it is decided that negotiations are to take place, determining the outcome of the negotiations in advance is a wrong and foolish act. You say, let's sit down and talk about such and such issue and reach an agreement. Why would you predetermine the result and say it must necessarily lead to this specific agreement? That is foolish. This foolish act is being carried out by US presidents and some senators, the president and others. Meanwhile, the US has been ramping up military assets in the Middle East to levels not seen since the build-up to the 2003 Iraq War invasion. 2 US aircraft carrier strike groups, a dozen warships, and hundreds of fighter jets are now stationed near Iran, creating a massive ring of steel around the Islamic Republic. Over 150 US military cargo flights have already moved tons of weapons and ammunition into the Middle East region, signaling that this is no ordinary deployment.
$25 करोड़ गरीब गरीबी को परास्त करके बाहर निकले।
For the good of our nation, let's work together and let's truly make America great again.
The fastest news breaks.
Requested PM saying that we will have to speak to Putin and to Zelensky.
The biggest newsmakers.
The relationship with India is probably the most important bilateral relationship the US will have for the rest of this century.
The capital delivered quite an election result today.
Expert analysis.
The million-dollar question today is how to stop this dance of death.
Ground reports.
I'm standing at the crossroad of the Kumbh Mela. Behind me are more than 100 entry guards.
Long-form interviews.
Exclusionary politics is reflected in Manipur case as well. You don't bother because this is a small state.
Deep dive into burning issues.
It's often said DRC could be the richest country in the whole world. It's because of what sits underneath.
Why exactly did the US topple the Sheikh Hasina government?
HD videos. We don't just break news, we break it down.